Thanks for having us out today. Mr. Blackbird here is on my crew, and he's my head of ignitions, and we'll be doing the fire tomorrow. I'd like to start out and just, if you have questions, stop us as we go, and we can handle them just like we would anything that would happen on a fire. My philosophy on prescribed fire is that you take all of the rainfall that you're given and convert it to grass instead of transferring that to a meat product. We put it into brush control, and so you take what you can get for rainfall, and we light that fire. A lot of people look for the perfect set of conditions, and they'll postpone fires. And it's a dangerous game to get into because fire is part of a process, and there is no tool that provides an instant solution. No chemical, no mechanical, but fire is a great way to start, and it is a natural choice for dealing with land and range issues. For example, we have a client at Goldthwaite, and we set him up for a fire. It's going to be 600 acres, and he's really concerned about getting the cedar killed. And we got a little bit of rain, and he was afraid of green, and he started taking cedar leaf moisture levels. And I think we burned 25,000 acres during the winter, and he sat on the sideline. And then he redid his fire guards, and he wanted to be a summer burn. And I guess we started the summer burn, and we burned maybe 14 or 15,000 acres, and he's still on the sideline waiting for the perfect condition. And we burned, another 25,000 acres in the winter, and we probably burned 4,000 acres so far this June, and he still thinks it may be too wet for his fire. And so he could be on his third fire and really moved his project along. We pass this back and forth. And
yes. Any of you guys want to say a quick word about equipment, how prepared you should be? Mr. Blackbird, you want to talk about your buggy and how equipped that is?
I don't think he wanted to do this.
Well, yes, no, we definitely realize that the equipment is one of the most, besides the men and women that are part of it, the most important part of the strategy. Brian handles the burn plan and the overlay of the day, the plan. But we use all sorts of different equipment. We use Polaris Rangers and slide-in sprayers. We use leaf blowers for suppression also, which is surprisingly effective. You would think that it would drive the fire, but it actually snuffs it out really quickly. So that's something good to keep in the back of your pickup just in case you see a fire on the side of the road. Leaf blower is very handy. We use four-wheelers for rougher country and real thick brush that the Rangers can't get through. Of course, pickups.
Here's a list of our equipment.
Yes.
We roll out with 2 trucks that have 250 gallon slip-in spray units, and we park one where we start, and the other one travels as support the whole time. We use at least 2 UTVs, 2 Rangers. Those run with 60 gallons, and we have 2 4-wheelers with 15 gallons. For Blackbird and I, as Conservation Fire Team, we roll to every fire with 6 to 8 people, and that's if we're burning, 100 acres to 2,000 or 3,000 acres. I think around 3,000 is as much as we burn in a day generally. We park the one rig in the weakest corner so that anybody could get back there and get to it. It's already on location. We always plan for the worst case on it. Like Blackbird said, we use the leaf blowers. Every vehicle has a leaf blower strapped to it somewhere. We will use the leaf blower, and we will not use any water most of the time. And Blackbird and I also respond to wildfires of a certain scale. And on 3 or 4 years ago, the Head of the River fire, we put out maybe 6 to 7 miles of open fire, and we use 60 gallons of water. We lit it, we did a lot of backlighting on it, and our entire site held, and they had spent a couple more days on the rest of the place conventionally putting water on it. Fire is really our only choice for fighting fire in most situations. We don't have a water resource to have the luxury of dropping tanker after tanker. Of course, we wear fireproof clothing. One of the things that we've improved, we use an auxiliary fuel tank in one of the trucks, and we have our burn mix in, and it makes it a rapid refill. And we've recently started using snake leggings, but not because we're afraid of snakes, but because it helps with the cactus needles and all the spines that you walk through. And I know that Mr. Russell uses different gear on the federal level and, on a scale that we don't compete with, but if you have anything to add on fire equipment, Randy?
Yes,
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 sir.
sir, I can switch with it. Yes, I was gonna talk later, but I'm up here now, just right in the middle of it, so we'll just, let her buck, I guess. Yeah, I was a Fed, for 37 years. Earlier, Morgan mentioned PPE, and that stands for Personal Protective Equipment. I guess a couple of years ago, I met this team and I've actually burned with them, 7 locations. I don't know what the acreage was, some of them was big, anywhere from a pivot to just some rangeland settings. From safety, that's probably one reason that Brian wanted me to help him a little bit. We don't necessarily have fireproof clothing, we wear fire resistant clothing. It's Nomax, it's a cotton fabric that's treated and it won't just flame up, but it resists fire. Pants, shirts, leather gloves. In National Forest Service, it's mandatory to wear hard hats. Down here, I don't wear a hard hat because you're really not in fear of falling objects, timber branches or snag accidents. 2 years ago, there was a gal got killed from a falling snag, which is a dead tree, and she was about 5 tree lengths or more away from a falling operation. She was eating lunch in the safe location, and the fallers were down in a riparian area on, there were some 90-foot cedar trees, which is relatively big compared to the ones you have down here, but it's a cedar tree that grew in North Idaho. Well, the faller knocked down that cedar tree, and then it fell on a leaner tree, a tree that was just leaning, and then that one, anyways, a chain of events. The 5th tree fell on this girl that was eating lunch. It was a fatality. Kind of sad, so that's one reason for the hard hats. Another safety item, I guess, would be that I kind of learned through the years is don't wear any nylon socks, and particularly, I guess this is kind of new age. A lot of saddles are being equipped with nylon webbing and backpacks and day gear. Don't wear nylon underwear, because if you ever get in a heated situation and that nylon just melts in your skin, and you're much better off wearing cotton fabrics. So it's kind of a little thing, but it may mean something sometime. Is that about it?
Yeah, I think that's good. So you have your equipment, and you need to be sure it's in good working order. Before we light, we fire everything up. It may be too obvious to try, but once the genie's out of the bottle and you've got no equipment, it's hard to look professional. For us, fire safety, good fire safety is developed before the fire is lit. One thing, the realtor's mantra, the location, location, location. You need to know your location, the crew's location on the fire, location of water, location of different hazards, the locations of your smoke, the location the fire may go if it breaks out. The next biggest thing to us is communication. You got to know where you are, and you got to know how to communicate that. before every fire, and there's a lot of this is repeats, and I may repeat myself during this. These are important things, but you always notify the sheriff. I write a letter to a county judge every time we light a fire, burn ban or not, because I think at our level, communication is key, and it's one of the most important factors in fire safety. Too many times we'll be filling up a drip torch or stop, pause on the side of a fire guard, and here comes a truck at like 75 miles an hour, skids to a stop, door swings open, guy steps out, and I'll stand up and say, hey, it looks like nobody called you. You just creates too much panic, and so communication to the neighbors, anybody that's going to be impacted by your smoke, these are all important things that we have to figure in every time. Communication is important because so many people are going to see your smoke, and for us, my crew, we like to do what we do because every day we know that we go to work, we know we make a difference. The second thing is every day we go to work, we're going to upset some people. And generally it's just the 911 operators, but they get a lot of calls about the smoke. And every time you light, if you will call dispatch, whatever the dispatch authority is, and get them to take your name, the address, and phone number, you are golden. You're protected, and anything that happens after that. Some locations that we burn, like near Houston and Harris County, have their own set of communication issues. You heard a lot of talk about EPA and TCEQ. Now, if you can imagine calling the TCEQ in Harris County to tell them that you are about to light a fire at so-and-so ranch, and so-and-so ranch is not a development of houses, and then if you have to be able to communicate that issue, but then a lot of times maybe you have to know Farsi or some other foreign language to speak to the people that work in these offices. It makes it very difficult. But back on the fire, when everything is good, I want to know who is calling on the radio, their closest location, and what they see about fire behavior. So this is Blackbird, I'm at Charlie, fire's looking good, it's back in, we've got so many yards of fire, we're passing information, and all these communications have to do with location and the message. You have to communicate to the crew. You have to watch them. Like tomorrow, our torch leaders, one of the things they're going to be looking for is how's everybody doing? I mean, you walk 0.2 of a mile. It's not like walking in the mailbox because it's 1,000 degrees right here in your hip pocket, and it takes a lot of energy out of you. We need to make sure everybody's drinking water. We need to have lots of communication, and communication makes a good burn day. A burn map is also how we communicate. The main reason to mark a map with neutral locations is for clear communication. I used to lease a lot of country for hunting, and you hear the legends of locations like the Fig Tree Windmill. Well, I looked for 2 weeks for the Fig Tree Windmill, and the fig tree had died 30 years before, but it was still called the Fig Tree Windmill. Or where we killed that rattlesnake 2 months ago, makes everybody pause to think instead of saying it's between Delta and Charlie. And we need a location. The burn plan is also a form of communication. I use the Parks and Wildlife Private Lands burn plan format. You can download a bunch of them. There are different varieties, like Chris and some of the people have said, but that is how you are going to communicate in court eventually that you gave this prior consideration, if it gets to that point in our litigious society, that you had adequate prior consideration given to the project because you were able to put it in writing and you did it before the fire started. Another thing, and this is something we'll cover at the briefing tomorrow, but when there is a problem, we call it a code yellow. We don't want anybody to panic. There's nothing to panic about. If you watch the fire, if you look at the fuels, if you dissect what you've seen, it may be that it gets into some little blue stem or silver blue stem that's pocket high and it's a raging fire. But just beyond it, it gets a little gravelly, a little sparser, and you can walk up and just step it out. So there's never a reason to panic, but when we do have a situation where a fire gets out, we want to know and we want to attack it when it's the size of a paper plate. So we call it code yellow. Early in our career, we used to say important things like code red. Way back when it meant at the end of the burn and we'd run out of beer. But code yellow doesn't imply panic, but it does mean we need to get onto it. And we want to be able to attack these spots. We want a leaf blower there. We want to have water access. One of the greatest things about a leaf blower is it goes over a fence, a high fence, any kind of fence, very rapidly on somebody's back, and we'll put a fire down. But being aware, knowing your location, and being able to communicate are all parts of fire safety. And being prepared, and that's where the fire equipment comes in. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on.
Well, just,
Go ahead.
thanks, Bert. Just some things on safety that some of the simplest little things will catch you. When Brian's team comes in, we position all the vehicles, pre-position the vehicles. And we just don't pull in and park like we're in Walmart. We purposely pull in and back into position, so if we need to get out in a hurry, we can come in and just leave that location and go to where we need it. We don't have to swirl around and get turned around. We leave the keys in every vehicle. Don't ever jerk the keys from anything. Leave the keys in every rig, wheeler, pickup. It's just kind of planning ahead.
Question?
Yeah, no, go ahead, anytime.
On your Mister, on your blower, these are the ones that have the Mister option on it, or just straight blower?
No, we're just straight blower. We're not big into options. But they make them now that go 255 miles an hour. I think our biggest one is 190 miles an hour. I mean our most fierce, it's not big, it's a handheld unit, but what it does is it doesn't just put the fire out, it backs the fire up. It flares it, it'll be in this bunch grass, you put the blower on it, it absolutely turns red hot, but it cannot advance. And then it also, in the duff and the leaves, especially under these live oaks and some shin oaks and stuff, it blows the leaves out. So you can actually put in like a rake line, but you do it as fast as you can walk.
How much and where did you get yours? How much more than it for the units?
Oh, leaf blower? They're $150. Best Techs or we use a commercial type product. And most all of our equipment is Echo or Still. All of our spray units have a Honda motor on them. We have a lot of expectation that they're going to run when we start in the beginning of every day.
You ever consider the backpack model, just a handheld?
I use the backpack. I prefer it. I've dropped a handheld over a high fence before, but the backpack went with me. And that's probably why you hadn't heard of us still today. We didn't make the 12 o'clock news. But any one of them, what you want is something that is accessible and not cumbersome, but puts out enough air. I bet anything over 90 miles an hour would be good. Dr. Russell's got a battery-powered one that's it's a cinch to start. I mean, you just pull the trigger and it'll run for 40 minutes or so. It's a good tool to add. It's something we all have. And there's been a number of times when we drain our water, we load up, and we're leaving, and I bet 3 times at least on I-10 in Kimball County, we've stopped to put out fires with leaf blowers when they're waiting on the fire department to get there. Just walk out, blow it out, and go home. But it's pretty handy, and it's a tool that we all should be practicing with.
We used them for a little bit. When they do, there's a technique to use it. You just don't go buy a leaf blower and go out and blow fire around. You blow it back into itself. In other words, you blow the flame back into the black. And as far as flame length goes, I don't know, in your experience, how effective a blower is on, say, a 2-foot flame length?
It really wouldn't matter, and as long as it's not into the trees. When it gets into the cedar trees, the best thing to do is shut it off and wait till it burns the other side, and then put the fire out. These are the points that you do not panic on. It's not gonna, you're not, you know, if in 200 years or since Jake Landers cut that last shin oak tree, Edwards County did not burn, I don't think we can light the whole county that day either. So we just it's gonna burn this tree, the energy is gonna dissipate. When the fire comes down, we pick out all the places it's spreading and put it out. We have a plan and act that a lot of times we'll carry 4 torches to start it out, and the plan is that the 4th torch walks the line, he brings it all up and hooks it off, and stays with that fire while everybody else is going to the spot. And you know, it's amazing how far a fire will move when it wants to. But for fire safety, our number one thing that we do, and the reason we're so effective on wildfires even, is we start early. Fire is a late sleeper. She parties all night long and then sleeps in and then starts up again the next day. And that's the trick. I mean, we tomorrow morning it's going to be 82-85% humidity when we're going to start this fire. Your textbook, and I have never seen one, but the textbook would say that is not good conditions for burning, that you want to hit 30% humidity or something like that. Well, that first 4 lines that we carry across the pasture, even on a big burn, you know, if we get 50 feet wide, we burn 1% of that pasture below margin. What we're doing is we're selectively stealing the escape routes, and we're taking the fuel, taking that underbrush on the backside of the fire, and making it where she can't go. Our ashes go over the road, go over the fire guard. That happens. If you did it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd all have heart attacks. But first thing in the morning, they land and they go out, and it's a safe way to do it.
Yeah, I just want to add, communication with the ignitions team, when you got a guy walking with a torch and a guy behind him, a lot of those communications are not verbal. We always stop, turn around, we watch the fire behavior. Dr. Morgan, she talks a lot about that. You can't take your eye off the ball for a second. You gotta stop, turn around, and see what it's doing, and also communicate. If you see a wind change or a gust come in, we stop and we'll report that. Hey, this is lead torch. I got a gust out of the west. Just a heads up. And my guy behind me knows that, and then everybody else down the line knows that. But constant kind of updates to what's going on the ground. That you can't really have too much of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Question.
I was curious on your personnel management. All my experience has been wildfire, and it's all hands, everybody you can get to fight fire, and you're stop it where you want to stop it. I'm sure I'm going to get some context tomorrow. But we're going to have a tremendous amount of people, from what I understand. Is there a number of people that you have per acreage, or?
No, and we're gonna talk about that more, about burning with less, and I think that's the direction our fire culture needs to move. There's no disrespect in different approaches to handling fire, dealing with fire, or even dealing with wildfire. But the bottom line is that most times that government position has to have its truck turned off and in the parking lot by so many hours in a day. And when we go, we get invited, the rancher will call us and say the fire's on, the fire's coming. We'll go, we'll assess it, we may work on it, we may get a couple hours shut-eye, and then go out at 4 in the morning with leaf blowers and mop the whole thing up. It's just a small fire, and what happens is there's this cycle with the organized wildfire fighting is they have a briefing in the morning, and everybody gets organized and goes back out, and and then she's up and at it again. She's partying hard, and you know, that's more than we can handle. We don't have enough water resources to fight a fire. I think most of our problems occur, in my opinion, when we go and heroically go down into a gully, lose 2 tires on our Army truck, put the fire out, go home, and it's back the next day. And I think that when you look at prescribed fire, you also need to look at the other side of the picture as wildfire and decide, my fire guards, the same way that we build a fire, we put a fire out. And, you know, knowing your assets and things that on your property that will make a difference during prescribed fire are the same things that would make a good line and a good difference during a wildfire. But for us, when we use 6 to 8 guys most of the time on all burns, but there's things that I could get away with on my ranch, or you could get away with on your ranch, as long as individuals. But when you bring somebody in as a professional status, commercial burn manager's expectation on us that we're going to come with whatever a jury is going to call inadequate equipment. Yes, sir.
When y'all light a fire with a higher humidity level early in the morning, do y'all have much trouble with dirty burns, or does it burn pretty good? I mean, I know the textbook y'all are talking about, it's like government a lot of times, if they're doing it, it's going to be 9:30, 10 o'clock with a certain humidity. But I was wondering if y'all are burning with a higher humidity, do y'all have that problem, or does it burn pretty good?
It all burns. I mean, by the end of the day, you're really not going to tell the difference. I think there are situations, though, where you could burn something at 70 or 80% humidity, and then you could get a massive change in condition, and the fire could come back through at like 9% humidity and find new things to burn. We leave a lot more crown on the grass. It'll recover quicker, but it's fuel. I think fuel and wind, maybe temperature, are together are a 3-legged stool that probably has more impact than humidity on the fire. We select in our firing techniques. Let's say your goal is to save your live oaks, but you want to kill all your prickly pear and cedar. Well, that may not work together if your live oaks have a lot of brush underneath them. The balance to that would be for us to say, okay, we're going to come in and burn you where our low is only maybe 60% humidity. And so we'll burn in the 80 to 60%. We'll take the grass. Prickly pear is one of the easiest things to kill. We'll get a percentage of your brush. But we'll clean it up to the point where, let's call that a layup shot to the green, and then we can get on the green and get the effect you want with the second burn.
So you basically burn out those areas, so then you come back at a condition where it burned hotter and go through there but not damage the tree.
Right, like on the 4K, we had a burn in McCullough County, and they're back here in the corner. It was a marginal burn, not a lot of grass, very heavy prickly pear, concern on trees, and we did that burn, and then we came back 9 months later and burned at the end of the summer or beginning of summer from a fall fire, I guess is what it was, and just knocked the snot out. But the edge was clean. I mean, there was no worry. Nobody had to stay up. We didn't use a chainsaw. It's a fire that you want to have, but it takes a step to get there. Yes.
Excuse me, your videos look really great, and I can tell there's a lot of wind.
Sometimes.
I've had some, marginal, like 6 miles an hour and 70 degrees and 30%. You just fight, get the burn. And then you get the conditions right, and it's great. What's your what kind of conditions can you push as far as wind, temperature?
No matter what your goal is, my number one goal is to be to have a safe fire. And so I'm going to have to make a decision that gets both of us as close as we can, but I'm going to win. because we're gonna have a safe fire. Tomorrow, there's not gonna be a lot of wind. It's gonna be under 10 miles an hour. And no matter what, let me say this, no matter what the forecaster says, that's not what's gonna happen most likely. So plan for that to begin with. But, wind dies all the time, but if we have it wrong, then we go in and we burn out. We hunt fuel, we divide the property into quadrants or sections. Everybody takes a piece and then we light from these UTVs and ATVs. And the fire will keep, as long as there's fuel, it's gonna keep burning. And, the wind helps us know the direction it's gonna go. By law, I'm not supposed to burn under 3 or 4 miles an hour. Maybe it's 6 even, I think. But the TCQ in this region just started paying attention to fire and actually writing down notes. So, they haven't caught up to where other parts of the state are. But that's one of the things we're trying to get the TCQ to remedy is, are they trying to control air quality or people? And if we're trying to control air quality, then as professionals, we can take steps to remedy those situations. The runaround answer for your question is every day is a good burn day. The most important thing, instead of the magic bullet and solving all your brush problems with one fire, is to move the ball off the line of scrimmage. And every time, that's our recommendation every time. Even if conditions aren't ideal, that's great. I mean, if we're talking 1,000-acre pasture and we only get 70% of your brush and 80% of your prickly pear, you couldn't have treated it any other way more effectively, efficiently, and in the same cost ballpark. So every fire is a good fire. Every fire moves it along. I don't think you can make a bad decision on the fire unless you're obviously killing people.
Well, what are your limits? Is it 20 or 25 miles an hour?
Oh no, I stay home with them. If it blows my hat off, I'm done. There's no,
Once you start, you can't really quit.
you shouldn't. And another thing we learned early on is we don't leave for lunch.
Once it gets, you say, okay, it's too windy, we're gonna leave.
Well, I use the forecast for that. I count on it. If I use weather.gov, I do the tabular forecast. I put all the boxes that have to do with fire, and 4 days out, it's a pretty fair indication. If it's got a lot of movement on it with wind direction, wind speeds, anything like that, then I will call NOAA, and they are very good about answering your questions. And they'll even provide you with spot forecasts the day of your fire. Once we start, I think only one time have we ever put the genie back in the bottle. And on the backfire, and this is where I know about climbing high fences with backpack blowers and stuff, is that anytime the fuel dropped the ground, it shot right up the tree, laddered up, and then went over the fence. And all of a sudden we had 7 spots or something. And the next day is when all those wildfires started in 2011. We think we could have burned the Canadian River from Menard County that day, but we echo leaf blowers. Plug them. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm part of the Tarleton Prescribed Burn Society, and we're just starting up. We have our basic tools. We have 2 drip torches and the basic hand tools, but we're wondering what our next big investment should be.
Radio.
You think radio? What would be after that? You keep talking about leaf blowers. Would that be your next step if you were in our position?
Yes, but a leaf blower is cheap compared to a good radio or any other equipment. I think you need to have mobile water. I mean, you can't. And every time I go look, set up a burn and talk to the people, what I'm talking about, and I say this, when I looked at Skipper's deal, what we're talking about is what this is going to look like in court when we're standing there together. And you say, I hired him, and this is what happened. So we make those plans. The landowner installing the fire breaks, that is the biggest step towards limiting his liability and negligence. Hiring a professional with insurance is the other step in it. But to go to court and not have mobile water, I think it would be a hard position to be in. So, a slip-in unit, it doesn't have to have a Honda motor on it necessarily. It could have the same little 3-horse electric motors even, and just a big plastic jug, but you want to be able to exhibit that you thought it through and you came with the tools for the forecast you were in. Now, a lot of times we'll have somebody set up a fire and it'll get pushed back. And so instead of being a 15 or 20 foot fire guard that would have been okay in February, we're gonna need 30 feet and we're gonna need the volatile brush pushed back. So your equipment needs to match the forecast, your forecast needs to match your equipment. It's a big picture thing, and we need to look at the big picture. The Indians had a great advantage over us because they light the fires and leave.
Training, sometimes training's pretty cheap. Get good people, help you, in your association. And practice.
We're very lucky with that, thank you.
I'm into spare tires, jacks, ball jacks, scissor jacks, plug wrenches. You gotta have a lot of those. Plug kits, air compressors, the works. You can't ever have too much equipment in my mind. Tools, guys that know how to use them, guys who can change a flat tire in the dark under duress helps.
We have a guy that can lift a Ranger up to put a tire on it if it's really needed.
The leaf blowers will put your tires out.
What's that?
The leaf blowers will put your tires out.
Oh, yeah, well, you need that sometimes. Hose clamps, a few hose clamps are pretty good to have too. I'm not a scientist. I kid about it a lot. I haven't seen the textbook, so I don't know what I can do. We've been very effective. We burn 30 to 50,000 acres every year. We've been doing it since 2006. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, but I can say that when I go across a pasture that we burn, and you maybe see some of these pictures where the prickly pear is laid over flat and it's turned clear, and we hadn't been done for an hour, or whatever it was, it's just a black nub sticking out of the ground. I don't know if I killed it or not, but I sure put it on the sidelines for this year, and that's our goal. And like Dr. Landers was saying, I truly believe in the places we burn frequently, they're grass savanna, and there is all of that brush in it. Before there was Dow or anybody else that knew how to kill stuff, it was all part of the prairie, and the fire return interval is what kept it shorter than the grass. And for us as land managers, instead of spending $125 an acre to clear a pasture, clear a strip around it and burn the pasture over time, and I think it's the best thing you can do, and you can get the best results long term. It's a sustainable practice, and it's going to promote all things that are important to us in this room.
Mr. Tate?
Talking about relationships and stuff, that letter you write to the judge, having a good relationship with them, can you burn during a burn ban in the county?
By license, I can, and I do, but occasionally we meet up with a judge that doesn't want us to, and it's not worth us proving to him that we can. Even if there's 4 or 5 roads out of that county and he doesn't know which one we're going to take, we're going to leave a signal to him that we were disregarding his authority. I think that comes back to communication. We're in the right, we have a license, we have the ability to burn. Is it a wise choice? And once you buck the judge, who do you ask for forgiveness when something goes wrong? This is communication 101, and you need to balance it out and know what your priorities are, and that should go with your goal. Don't get target fixated and I spent the money on the fire guard, we're going to burn this week. Well, conditions change rapidly here, if you hadn't noticed, and your fire guards, they could be good for 3 months. I mean, some of them, depending on how they were cleaned up, but it's always best to wait for a better day than to die on that hill, I think.
Mr. Thorne?
Talk to us about fuel loads, and how do you determine if there's enough fuel, and they say so many thousand pounds per acre, but most of us don't have a judge that, so what are you looking at?
Well, and as we go around the unit, we try and talk about what it's gonna look like after we burn it with this fuel load. And you know, when we start talking about 2,000 pounds of grass or something, you know, that's a pretty contiguous standing grass, knee high. And if we have spots of that, what we're really looking for is a contiguous turf is ideal. Otherwise, what I do is I explain how this is going to be left out, and I said that's nothing to be ashamed of, because fire naturally creates a mosaic pattern. And I think if we're trying to recreate natural methods, that a mosaic pattern is better. Your country will begin to heal and repair faster. When somebody is disappointed they did not get nuclear black and have white ash and smoking sticks, you know, that's the kind. It may be really good for brush control, but it's going to take a long time to recover. And I think the best plan is to take whatever, if you have a livestock operation, or whatever that is, and we balance that into fire. And the best way to do that is obviously with rotation. And what I did, what we do it at our place is we short, if all my pastures are 500 acres now, I take one 500 acre pasture out. So I run that many animal units short, but I always have a pasture ready to burn. And eventually I'll be able to do even more stock, because I mean, when we talk about stocking rates and pastures, a lot of times we don't take into consideration what is usable ground, what can be eaten. You know, just because it's a 1,000 acre pasture doesn't mean it's 1,000 acres of feed. And so we could have 70% closure on brush, or prickly pear could be invaded so bad that, you know, you get 2 or 3 days grazing out of the pasture. I still think we should burn that pasture. I think we should burn it and burn around the edges wherever there is fuel, and then that will create more grass, which will be more fuel for the next fire. And then you get into processes. We have to do something to break the cycle that is driving us nearly out of business by the practices we have. I think, though, as a whole, I'm like a report card for a teacher. I can look at a pasture and say, this is going to be an A+ burn, and we're going to just knock it down. Or this is going to be a B-, but B- is good. C+ is good. In a lot of places we go, you know, there could be continual grazing in the pasture, and they have created fire guards. And we think cattle are too expensive to burn around, but some ranchers don't agree with us, and they do move out of the way for the most part. The mentality, Skipper, needs to be that God gave me the rain, I grew that grass, I need brush control, not pounds of forage this year. Convert it to brush control, and I mean, it's like shooting a buck when you sell a buck. You know, this is the natural free-range breeder would say that this is indicative of what this year's weather pattern produced, and so it's a trophy for this year. And so this burn could be a trophy burn for this year of what we could produce. But what we've done is we've turned the cycle around and started moving in that direction.
Quick question. Do y'all have a strategy for when, specifically taking, if you have like a standard brush in the middle of your pasture, you burn everything out of it, that standard brush is going to leave, it's going to burn hotter, so you're going to sterilize that soil underneath, or you have to sterilize that soil. Do y'all have a strategy to help that soil recover? Do y'all reseed it? What?
No, we think that we're doing. It's just the way the cards were stacked, and then we're going to reshuffle the deck through a series of fires or whatever tool that we're going to throw at it. You know, a lot of this, it's like playing blackjack. As long as you're consistent, you're going to come out a winner on it. And you know, we have a lot of live oaks. We have a lot of brush. We probably don't need to save them all. This is not the way our country looked. It's what are your goals? What's important to you? You know, who's got your ear? Is it the extension or a realtor? Or I mean, you know, what are your goals with it? But But I wouldn't be afraid of sterilizing ground because God's got a plan for that. If you're making brush piles, I think more small brush piles is better than Walmart-sized brush piles because of that factor. But you know, where you make it that hot, I think there's going to be a lot of ash, and then you're going to get a lot of hoof action, at least from the wildlife, through that spot, and it will work itself out. And then on nesting cover, because we encourage burning all year long. You know, if you enlist to what Dr. Lander said, he's implying that the Native Americans lit most of those fires, and in the late 60s to the early 1870s, fire diminished from the Edwards Plateau because there were so many of us that they left. And that stopped the fires. And then it really got good in the 50s when the rural telephone was able to get the fire department all the way back to where the fire was. They even knew that there was a fire, and so they started putting fires out. And but if you use fire to promote diversity, and you only burn during the same 2 months of the year, you're actually serving to limit your potential for diversity. And so you should burn at different times of the year. But I think we all have recognized that on bad years that start out tough in the summer and then they get wet, the quail nest throughout the summer and even into September, and you can see bumblebees out there with them. And so, you know, don't be afraid of burning because of nesting cover. That animal is equipped through centuries to have another nest and another clutch, and it'll be in better condition, and you will move the ball forward on the place.
Okay. He's going to talk more, so we'll be able to ask him more questions. But let's give the three amigos a round.